Well, here we are at the fourth Sunday of 2024, almost out of here with that 2024, stepping into 2025. And what always happens on our fourth Sunday is our assistant pastor, Reverend Jerrold, everything that he's heard from myself and Reverend Paul, and then what God gives him, he wraps it up and serves it right back to us. So without further ado, let us welcome our assistant pastor, Reverend Jerrold Smith. The Spirit within is our gift.
Good morning. Before I get into today's message, I just want to thank a couple of folks. I want to thank all of you, LA Third, for all the support and love that you share with myself and Reverend Lisa, Reverend Paul, Dr. Ronnie, and all of us who come to give you a word. And we don't get a chance to say it, but speaking for me and them, we appreciate it. We really do. We appreciate your love and your understanding. There's people in your life that you've known a long time. My wife's here, known her almost 30 years now. Dated for a little while, decided to get married. Decided to stay married. That's some heavy decisions, y'all. But I want to acknowledge, since there's some feedback over here somewhere, I don't know where it's coming from. I want to acknowledge one person in the room who has known me most of my life. I'm talking about since I was a toddler, just running around and getting into mischief. And that's my cousin Virginia, sitting right there on the back row. Raise your hand, let everybody know. So, if you really want to know something about Reverend Jerrold, that's where you need to go. There's a few other people that can give you some information too. My sister-in-law, Marcia, I met her when I was a teenager, when she married my brother. She's known me quite a while too. But the difference is, Virginia gonna tell you the truth and everything that happened. Marcia gonna lie for me. She gonna make excuses for anything I did wrong. But this is a special time, and I don't know, is it me, y'all? Is it turn this off? You think that'll work? It's off already, so something else ain't right. Let's see. The green light's on. All right, so we're gonna work through this. This is that time of year where we all do the very best we can to love as many people as we can, to share gifts with many people as we can, to be gracious in receiving the appreciation from as many people as we can. We'll focus it on these couple of weeks that we're in right now. So it really doesn't matter what happened a few weeks ago. It really doesn't matter what's going to happen a few weeks from now. What matters is that we take this joy, not happiness, joy, that we feel during this time of year, and not just embrace it, but make a commitment to share it every single day of our lives. That's what makes Christmas time so important. So as we come today to prepare, Reverend Lisa says I sit and I listen and I absorb what her and Reverend Paul has to say, and then I add my little stuff too, and I use it to try to bring things together and close out the month. I don't feel any pressure at all today because I don't have to close out the month. Sometimes I get up here and say, well, you better hit a home run because they're waiting on you, they're expecting you. All I gotta do is bunt him over to third base today and let Dr. Ronnie take it on in. So the pressure's off. But as we prepare to celebrate the birth of the Christ consciousness within, because we've been talking all month how the Spirit within is the gift, not the gift, the gift. So when we prepare to celebrate that Christ consciousness within, we recognize that the ultimate gift is the everlasting inner presence of Spirit within us. A power and presence that we don't have to summon this power or this presence. All we have to do is recognize it. All we need to do is unify with it. All it asks us to do is realize it, give thanks for it, and release it in faith. You know that song, All I Want for Christmas Is My Two Front Teeth, remember? I think, you remember that one? I don't know why, I thought about that song, All I Want for Christmas. But I didn't say my two front teeth. I said, all I want for Christmas is the ultimate gift. The I am, the Jehovah. All I want for Christmas is that loving power that takes care of this human family. All I want for Christmas is that forever living, always giving male and female principle that we call the Christ of God. Something that's indivisible, something that is divine, and something that is forever and always spiritual. The I am, the I was, the I will be, is the I am provider, the I am peacemaker, and the I am all-powerful Christ of God. That divine spirit that we refer to in this building on every occasion we get a chance, the eternal I am. That unseen divine spirit that fills us with the birth of the Christ consciousness this time every year as we celebrate Jesus. Now, for many of us who consider ourselves to be of the Christian faith, Jesus represents that Christ idea that can be expressed by all who accept, by all who believe, by all who understand, and by all who embody the spiritual truth he demonstrated and he revealed. You see, there's a complete idea of a perfect man in divine mind. I know y'all think you got all kind of flaws and things you need to fix. But I'm going to say it one more time because I know that at least one person in here sitting over there in the red jacket agrees with me. There's a complete idea of a perfect man in divine mind. Divine spirit as the true spiritual higher self allows us to fully understand that with the highest of our thoughts, the highest of our words, and the greatest of our deeds and actions, we become more like Jesus. We can manifest the Christ nature and the blessings therein. And I know some of y'all are saying, here you go with that more like Jesus stuff again. But I got to ask you a simple question. If we're not here seeking spiritual perfection, then why did you come? I know some of y'all have been taught that it's an unreachable goal. No way you can be as divine as the Christ. We've been taught that, preached that. All you can do is just get down on your knees and pray and hope that you can be all that they tell you in the Nike commercial you can be. But Jesus himself told us a different story. He said, all that I am, there lies in you. Everything that I do, so can you. Now, not that I distrust my elders. I don't hold nothing against them at all. Because, see, we all have to believe something. In particular, we're in a situation where we ain't got a whole lot going for us. Somebody had to tell you something that kept you on your knees picking that cotton. Somebody had to tell you something that kept you from losing your mind when they took your child away. Somebody had to give you some hope. And I'm blessed for that hope. If it wasn't for that hope, none of y'all would be sitting here right now in your right mind. Trust me. So I am in no way disparaging what we were told. I'm just simply doing my part to let you know that they left a couple of things out. That's all. Wasn't intentional. Charles Fillmore, great metaphysician, Unity Faith, he says, the birth of Christ in man is the bringing into consciousness of a spiritual idea of man. He's telling us that we unify with when we gain access to this quickening power of the Christ through our recognition and acceptance of the words of truth that were taught and demonstrated by Jesus, then we're ready to celebrate the reason for this season. He said, we gain access to the quickening power of the Christ through our recognition and, most importantly, acceptance of the words of truth and thoughts that were demonstrated by Jesus. That's why we celebrate Mary and Joseph uniting to bring forth this Christ child. You see, at Christmas time, we're able to eat, we're able to drink, and we're able to be merry because of the union of divine love and spiritual understanding. You see, at Christmas, we bring attention to the birth of the Christ, a divine spirit which lives within each and every one of us. We recognize an expression of the divine in the person Jesus, the Christ child. We unify and commune with one another. We shower ourselves with the light that guides us to be the best that we can possibly be. We realize that the wisdom and the power of God that can manifest the gifts of the Spirit will do so to everyone who accepts him. He ain't gonna pick and choose. It's yours. Yours for the acceptance. Not just for the asking, not just for the taking, but for the accepting. You see, when we unify and commune with these powers and principles that we've been endowed with, we realize that that wisdom, that power that allows us to celebrate each and every Christmas, that opportunity that was given to us to recognize our truth, which is the Spirit, is the greatest gift that we have that's within us. So as we celebrate each Christmas, the birth of a consciousness that makes everything already all right. We acknowledge the coming of the greater part of ourselves that overcome, that can fix, change anything, unlike the original image and likeness in which we were created. Christmas proclaims the birth of a spiritual understanding within the human nature of mankind. This month, we've been reminded the birth of the Christ is the beginning of our journey to reestablish our divine relationship with the Father. The holiday season, a time of peace, a time of joy, a time of goodwill towards one another. I like this time of year because regardless of our differences, everybody seems to have that smile first attitude. You understand? You can walk past somebody on the street. They may not look exactly like you. Matter of fact, they may be dressed in a way where you know they ain't like you. They might have on their traditional cultural garb. They might, just present themselves in a way where you say, well, they didn't grow up on the east side. Well, I did. They must have grew up on the west side. But all cultures, all religions, somehow find a way to be on their best behavior around this time of year. Our Jewish friends, they celebrate Hanukkah. They return to the Temple of Jerusalem, which imparts our spiritual center. They return to the spiritual place that was taken by the Syrians. The Syrians represent that material, intellectual thought. And during this time, they burn lights for 8 days, and they give gifts for each one of those days that awaken them to the divine potential, which is the number 8, which means new birth and new beginning. And then our Muslim brothers and sisters, I'm very familiar with them, grew up with them, got taught by them. Never forget the day my brother John Abdul Haq showed up on my front porch. He said, just came by to tell you and Dad, you're no longer Smith. I turned around, looked at Dad. He was cool. He didn't have no expression on his face. So he made his speech, grabbed his papers, walked on off. I looked back at Dad. I said, Dad, are we changing our name to Haq? He said, no. But we're going to support your brother. And we did. I was at the mosque. I was there. Whenever he had something, did something, got an award, I was there. To this day, he's somebody that I admire. Not that he was perfect now. He did some stuff he shouldn't have done. But he's somebody that I admire. 97 years old. Still honorary. But the Muslims, they celebrate this time of year as a return to the temple built by Abraham and Ishmael that represents the ability to express faith and substance, allowing the natural thought to hear God's truth. The personality is ignored and replaced by the light of spiritual understanding. Like my brother Malcolm X did. See, they return to Mecca, a place free of material and worldly values. And they follow it up with Eid, which is a celebration of food, gifts to charity and family. Sound familiar? I know y'all think you're way different from them, but does it sound familiar? And then our Hindu brothers and sisters, they celebrate Diwali. The new year, they visit family, friends, exchange gifts, they feast, they wear new clothes, light lanterns, symbolizing the beginning of a righteous life. Our meditative Buddhist brothers and sisters, they celebrate Vesak, the birthday of enlightenment. They sing hymns, refrain from killing animals. They live in harmony with each other. They respect all faiths, distribute cash gifts to the aged, take care of the handicapped and the sick, and they express joy by decorating their temples. They tend to live noble lives, develop their minds, practice love, kindness, and bring peace to humanity. Now, I know y'all think they're different from you, but does it sound familiar? And then we as Christians celebrate Christmas, the birth of the Christ. The union of devoted love and intuitive power of Mary and the great wisdom, imaginative power of Joseph, which produces the spiritual truth of peace, harmony, unity within the divine indwelling Christ. We decorate our homes with lights. We share gifts and food with our loved ones. We all attempt to stay focused on the reason for the season. Isn't this a wonderful time? Don't you wish that could be all the time? But unfortunately, we get distracted. We get distracted by what we call noise. The television, the radio, the internet, social media, personal, political, and religious differences disrupt our celebration of being our best selves. Our reactions to this material world keeps the mind from being stayed on the religious, spiritual concepts we claim to hold so dear. Not because God is less powerful today than he was yesterday, but because man has made his chosen God, his chosen political party, his chosen personal desires more important than his spiritual understanding. We've decided that our culture, our belief system, is what dictates the only path that God would allow us to take. Our joy is displaced by prejudice. Our peace is interrupted by fear. Our goodwill is suppressed by distrust. The only thing that brings us peace, joy, and goodwill that we seek is the acceptance of our spiritual gifts, which is the reason for this season. Recognizing the greatest gift of all is that spirit that lives, moves, and has its being within us. A divine spirit that awaits our birth of it, our acceptance of it, our affirmative declaration of it. I want you to know something. Never, ever, ever give up. All this discord and mess that we experience in this life, it's all going to be all right. Oh, there's going to be a change. There's going to be a shift when all faiths recognize their universal sonship with the Christ. The only begotten Son, the Christ child, that we refer to as Jesus the Christ. But in order for us to make that shift, in order for us to come together in a united consciousness, we have to realize that Christ is more than a name. It's a principle. Every religion unifies with the Christ nature. All people realize the living Christ within them. No race, culture, class, nor religion can lay exclusive claim to the activity of the one presence. That always confused me, Reverend Lisa. How can there be one power and one presence and so many different ideas about it? It boggles my mind. I'm so glad I met Dr. Ronnie because he cleared it up for me. I'm serious. When I'm here, tell you, I was confused. I said, man, what about this? Well, he said, I ain't gonna give the secret right, tell you what he told me, but he told me the truth. I said, man, I don't want to be a reverend. Remember that? I literally said that to him. No, I didn't. Because I knew too many scandalous reverends. I grew up around them. Oh, I'm going to be Minister Jerrold. Since Malcolm was my idol, I could handle that. But Reverend, my brother sent me in that office back there. So let me tell you something. Your life is going to be based on what you do with it. So what you call yourself don't mean nothing. It's what you do that's going to count. Remember that? So the question becomes, how do we get our humanness out of the way? How do we reveal, demonstrate, and manifest our spiritual gifts? Reverend Lisa had us look at chapter 4 in our text. And there, Ernest Holmes says this. He says, the soul is the medium through which spirit operates. It is the doer or executor of the will. Can only reflect the images that we consciously reflect into it. Our soul has the power to produce all, but has no choice in what it produces. Think about that. It can do anything except choose. Guess who chooses? You. Funny thing about this soul, it has to produce the mental seed that we plant. So all this stuff that we deal with, all the diseases and happiness, poverty, misery, must be a mental expression first in order for it to become your experience. But I don't want you to take it personal. You see, this is a collective consciousness. Is the axis that this spirit world spins around. It ain't just you thinking. It's all of us thinking. And somewhere all them thoughts is being whirled around and mixed up in a dish, and the predominant one gets to win. So when it's going all good, we winning. The positive folk in this room are winning, the ones who truly believe and truly live their lives every day trying to help somebody else, you're winning. But when all hell breaks loose, a couple of those folks, it's funny, I got to say this. I was at a service yesterday for one of our radio personalities, and I don't get to hear Tavis Smiley preach much. Talks a lot, but preach much. But he said something in his dissertation that just, I had to keep from falling on the floor. He said how when people pass that are people that we know are just great people, we want to question God and accuse God of making a mistake. And he said, God, he said, you don't need to make these kind of mistakes. All you got to do is ask me. I know a whole bunch of Negroes whose names I can give you. You know, it's a service now. You know, you gotta have some dignity. I almost fell on the floor laughing. But think about that. When something happens to someone that we know to be a good person, a sweet person, and we start to question why things are happening. And we ask ourselves, Lord, just ask me. I can volunteer a couple of folks. Nobody in here, of course. But I tell you, it's all about what we think, you guys. Reverend Lisa, who has benefited probably more than anyone in this room from the spirit and knowledge of this brother over here. You know, when I listen to her, I hear every word she says. And she knows that I'm even here because of her. Came here one Sunday to hear Dr. Ronnie, heard her, said, this is it for me. But when she speaks, I have that background knowledge of knowing from which it came. Who lit that light? Who put it there? Now, she didn't have to take it and run with it, but she's the 100-yard sprint champion now. She gets you there quick. She gets you there quick, and the beauty of spirit when it's being used in the right direction, it don't just stick on one person. It flows to the other one over here. You can look at me now. You can wake up now. Come on. Give me a look. You can smile. He know I'm talking about. So Reverend Lisa, she comes to us and she says, the spirit within is our special, unchanging, all-knowing, and all-powerful ability to love unconditionally. It's the only healing salve that we need. Now, you know, she's big on creams and lotions and stuff. That's why she said that. It's the only salve you need. It doesn't look like us. It doesn't think like us, worship like us, or vote like us. It doesn't keep any distance from us. All this power that she's instilling in us, all the spirit that she's talking about, it only requires us to do one thing, and that's respect it. Think about that. Aretha Franklin, a lot of great songs. My favorite, you know what I'm talking about. My favorite one was Respect. She says, home is where you acknowledge your spiritual gifts. So when she says respect is present, you know what respect is the acronym for? She wants us to remember embracing spiritual perfection encompasses conscious thought. Did you get that? The R is remember. The E is embrace. The S stands for spiritual, P perfection, E encompass, C conscious thought. So you see, all we have to do is RESPECT. Respect is power and presence that's within us. But we get to, sometimes we lose our way and we neglect to feel, we neglect to acknowledge and proclaim that spirit within. And when we do that, we expose ourselves to confusion. Faith, trust, and belief is something that requires the Christ consciousness. Reverend Paul told you, you can't experience it unless you feel it. You must move. It has to move in you in order for it to work through you. If you want to rise to another level, lighten your burdens with spiritual truth. Spiritual truth is universal. It doesn't have a religion attached to it. It doesn't have a culture attached to it. It doesn't have a race, creed, or color attached to it. Redemption of the soul requires only the discovery of that spirit within you. Your inner voice always has the answer. Put the gift of self-improvement under your tree this year. The birth of Christ is the acknowledgement of the acceptance of self-empowerment. I had to get Reverend Lisa's Bible because I left mine at home. But that's a signal. I don't need to read it. You know, I always try to get here sometime, and one of these days I'm going to show up with nothing. Then just talk. But in this book, she wanted us to look at Matthew. And I looked at the second chapter, verse 6 through 11. And in that chapter, it talks about this guy, Matthew. And you get a little insight into where he was coming from. He was an individual who withdrew from material money collecting. He was a tax collector. He was that person you did not want to see coming. Because back then, if you didn't have your taxes, you know, they was going to do more than garnish your check. They was going to garnish your foot or something. They're going to leave with something. But here, after being exposed to this spirit within that we're talking about, after being exposed to this Christ consciousness, he became aware of his inner spiritual gift. The regeneration of spiritual man became a producer and not a parasite. So during this time, he had more to do with giving than he did receiving. You see, that's what this time is all about. It's about giving. But yet we teach our children if they're good, Santa gonna bring them something. If you give your time and talents to others, I'm gonna say it one more time because I don't want anybody to misunderstand. If you give your time and talents to the benefit of others, all the gifts of the Spirit are at your disposal. I know sometimes we do stuff and we don't think we're getting paid enough for it, or we don't think we're getting recognized enough for it. Trust me, the most valuable thing you have are the relationships you develop through your giving consciousness. Reverend Jerrold is not a rich man. I ain't poor, but I ain't rich. But I can tell you this. If relationships were money, I would be a multi-trillionaire. So you see, when this Christ is born in us, we have access to this divine substance. We have these new ideas. We have a fuller, more abundant life. That scripture that I'm not going to read to you, it tells you about a place called Bethlehem, which stands for a house of bread. It stands for the substance center where spiritual ideas of man exist. It talks about this guy that, his name was Herod. He wasn't liked much. He was like somebody else y'all are familiar with. He was all about self. And he represents the ruling power of this outer personal consciousness. So he sent some of his, who he thought were henchmen, to go do his bidding for him. I want y'all to go find this baby, let me know where he is, and so I can dispose, I can do what I need to do so he will not threaten my new agenda. But the wise man got wise. They say they came from the east, which symbolizes the inner resources of the soul when it is stirred to the depths by revolutionary truth. Something came over them. They said, we ain't following him. We're going to pay homage to this new idea, this new consciousness. You see, that east symbolizes something that comes from within, and the coming of the wise men signifies that intuitive wisdom reverently seeking out the new idea of life that is beginning in consciousness. We're starting to get it, y'all. It's coming. He was born King of the Jews, meaning the ruling power of spiritual consciousness when it first dawns on the mind and heart of the individual. Isn't that a great feeling? Our dawning consciousness of the Christ life within, which is the heart and soul, represented by that star that came and stood over the young child. When we are filled with joy and gladness, when they saw that star, they rejoiced exceedingly with joy. King Herod was not a happy camper. The outer personal sense consciousness is disrupted by the first gleaming and different consciousness of a fresh, loving, kind, giving mind and heart. The personal consciousness is jealous of its power and authority and seeks to retain its dominion over everyone. But by nourishing and nurturing the idea of spiritual thought daily, we can protect that spirit of Christ within us. We can bring it frankincense that evolves the material into spiritual consciousness. We can douse ourselves with myrrh, the eternity of spirit and resurrection of love. We can bring with us a whole bunch of gold, spiritual gifts of an omnipresent substance, which rich, wise ideas are demonstrated in our thoughts. You see, our salvation lies in the clinging fast to the Christ idea of life and the turning back on our sense and personality. We return to maintain it, and we maintain it by prayer and through meditation. Emmett Fox tells us they called him the wonder child, the power through constructive thinking. The indwelling power, the inner light, the spiritual idea is spoken of in the Bible as a child. And throughout the scriptures, the child symbolizes and stands for this inner light. The Bible symbolizes its own beautiful logic, and just as the soul is always spoken of as a woman, just as the spirit of idea is born into the soul, it describes us as a child. The conscious discovery by you that have this power within you, your determination to use it, your determination to give birth to it, those are the ones of us that experience the birth of the Christ consciousness on this day we call Christmas. We readjust the religious convictions in many respects discarding those who are no longer convincing in light of spiritual understanding and embracing those instead, those ideas that are new to them, but compelling and reasonable. That's exactly why places like this exist. The birth of Christ within us is an ongoing process. Whatever loving attitude you project during this season, the gifts you look forward to sharing during this time of year, the spiritual food that you can't wait to partake of during the holidays, the optimism that you hold for this new year. Let's make them an everyday occurrence. Let's make it happen every hour, every second, every moment of every year. Each moment is an opportunity to imagine or envision a new idea of yourself. Proclaim the gift of the Spirit, your most valued possession. Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, and I want all of you to have a blessed new year. God bless you.
Let's give our assistant pastor, Reverend Jerrold, some more love. And I must say, you are rich. All of us are rich because the Spirit within is the gift.